Indonesia Airasia Flight 8501, QZ8501, AWQ8501, was a scheduled international passenger flight, operated by Airasia Group affiliate Indonesia Airasia, from Surabaya, Indonesia, to Singapore. On the 28th of December 2014, the aircraft operating the route, an Airbus A320-216, registered as PKAXC, MSN, 3648, crashed into the Java Sea during bad weather, killing all 155 passengers and 7 crew on board. 2 days after the crash, debris from the aircraft and human remains were found floating in the Java Sea. Searchers located wreckage on the seafloor beginning on the 3rd of January, and the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder were recovered by the 13th of January. The search for bodies ended in March 2015 after recovery of 113 of the 162 bodies. On the 20th of January 2015, it was reported that the aircraft had stalled during an abnormally steep climb and had been unable to recover. On the 1st of December 2015, the Indonesian National Transportation Safety Committee released its report concluding that the sequence of events leading to the crash started with a malfunction in the rudder travel limiter unit that eventually led to a 104-degree roll of the aircraft. The pilot's response, and apparent miscommunication between them, was a significant link in the chain of events that led to the loss of the aircraft. The air crash became the second deadliest in Indonesian territory, behind Garuda Indonesia Flight 152 in 1997, and the third deadliest aviation incident in 2014, behind Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 and Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. It was also the second deadliest air crash involving an A320, the third deadliest air crash involving the A320 family, and the only fatal crash of Airasia's group. Sequence of events. Flight 8501 was a scheduled flight from Surabaya, Java, Indonesia to Singapore on Sunday the 28th of December 2014. It was scheduled to depart Wanda International Airport at 5:20 Western Indonesian Time, WIB, UTC+7, and arrive at Singapore Changi Airport at 8:30 Singapore Standard Time, SST, UTC+8. Flight 8501 took off at 5:35. Indonesia Airasia did not have permission from the Indonesian Ministry of Transportation to operate the route on Sundays. After departure, Flight 8501 was in contact with the Jakarta Area Control Center, call sign, Jakarta Center, which provides air traffic control, ATC, service over the western Java Sea, and flying along air route M635, when it approached a line of thunderstorms off the southwest coast of Borneo. At 6:12, Flight 8501 was flying at flight level 320, approximately 32,000 feet, when the cockpit requested and received permission to deviate left from its original flight path to avoid these storms. The pilot then requested to climb to flight level 380, which was deferred by ATC because of other aircraft in the vicinity. Airnav Indonesia, which operates the Jakarta Area Control Center, reported that Jakarta Center then cleared Flight 8501 to flight level 340 at 6:14, but no response was received. Other aircraft in the vicinity were asked to contact Flight 8501, but also did not receive a response. Between 06:17:00 and 06:17:54, the aircraft climbed from 32,000 to 37,000 feet, exceeding a climb rate of 6,000 feet per minute, about twice the maximum rate that a commercial aircraft should climb in still air. A photo of a secondary radar screen, without a timestamp, showed the aircraft at flight level 363, approximately 36,300 feet, and climbing with a ground speed of, which is too slow to maintain stable level flight in still air. The Indonesian Minister of Transport interpreted the apparent aircraft behavior at peak altitude as an aerodynamic stall, when it began to descend at 06:17:54, descending 1,000 feet within 6 seconds and 8,000 feet within 31 seconds. The aircraft also began a turn to the left, forming at least one complete circle before disappearing from radar at 06:18:44. The cockpit voice recorder captured multiple warnings, including a stall warning, sounding in the cockpit during the final minutes of the flight. No distress signal was sent from the aircraft. Timeline of disappearance. Search and recovery. Shortly after the aircraft was confirmed to be missing, unconfirmed reports stated that wreckage had been found off the island of Belitung in Indonesia. Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency, Basarnas, deployed 7 ships and 2 helicopters to search the shores of Belitung and Kalimantan. The Indonesian Navy and the Provincial Indonesian National Police Air and Water Unit each sent out search and rescue teams. In addition, an Indonesian Air Force Boeing 737 reconnaissance aircraft was dispatched to the last known location of the airliner. The Indonesian Navy dispatched 4 ships by the end of the first search day, and the Air Force deployed aircraft including a CASA, IPTNCN 235. The Indonesian Army deployed ground troops to search the shores and mountains of adjacent islands. Local fishermen also participated in the search. Ongoing search and rescue operations were under the guidance of the Civil Aviation Authority of Indonesia. The search was suspended at 7:45 p.m. local time on the 28th of December due to darkness and bad weather, to be resumed in daylight. An operations center to coordinate search efforts was set up in Pangkal Pinang. The search area was a 270 nm radius near Belitung Island. Search and rescue operations quickly became an international effort. By the 30th of December, naval and air units from Singapore, Malaysia and Australia had joined Indonesian authorities in patrolling designated search areas. Singapore's Rescue Coordination Center (RCC) deployed 3 C-130 Hercules aircraft to aid in the search and rescue operation. A formidable class frigate, a Victory-class corvette, a landing ship tank, and a submarine support and rescue vessel subsequently took part in the search and rescue after Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency accepted the offer of help from the Republic of Singapore Navy. Singapore's Ministry of Transport provided specialist teams from the Air Accident and Investigation Bureau and underwater locator equipment. The Malaysian government set up a rescue coordination center at Subang and deployed 3 military vessels and 3 aircraft, including a C-130, to assist in search and rescue operations. Australia deployed a P-3 Orion to assist in the search and rescue operation. India put 3 ships and a Boeing P-8 Poseidon maritime surveillance aircraft on standby for assistance in the search operation, including 1 ship in the Bay of Bengal and another in the Andaman Sea. Elements of the United States Navy joined the search effort, arrived on station late on the 30th of December, and on the 3rd of January. By the 5th of January, 31 bodies had been recovered with the aid of the Russian and the U.S. search teams. Divers entered the main section of the fuselage underwater and discovered 6 bodies on the 24th of January. Vessels and aircraft from Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, South Korea, Japan, China, the United States, and Russia participated in the search. This fleet included 3 ships with underwater detectors and 2 fuel tankers seconded to ensure efficient operation of the vessels in the search area. On the 2nd of January, the Indonesian Ministry of Transport reported that 2 other Indonesian tender vessels had been fitted with equipment which could detect acoustic signals from the flight recorder, black box, beacons and airframe metal, as well as multi-beam side-scan sonar. The official search for bodies ended on the 17th of March. After 106 bodies had been recovered, 56 bodies remained unaccounted for. A live Reddit feed that was constantly updating the details of the search and recovery efforts leaked details of the operation. An April press conference revealed details discovered by the BASARNAS rescue team divers. 115 remains, including body parts, were recovered. 111 of them are believed to be from 99 passengers. Wreckage. On the day of the disappearance, a fisherman observed a lot of debris, small and large, near Pulau Tujuh. It looked like the Airasia colors. Another fisherman reported that, while moored on Sunday at Pulau Senggora, south of the town of Pangkalan Bun in central Kalimantan, around 7 a.m., I heard a loud booming sound. Soon afterwards, there was haze that usually happened only during the dry season. Before the exploding sound, my friends saw a plane from above Pulau Senggora heading towards the sea. The plane was said to be flying relatively low but then disappeared. The fishermen's reports, delivered after they had returned home the next day, were credited with guiding the search and rescue team to the vicinity of the crash. The first items of wreckage were spotted by search aircraft on the 30th of December in the Karimatau Strait, 10 kilometers from where the crew last contacted air traffic control, and 3 bodies were recovered by the warship KRI Bung Tomo. Also on the 30th of December, Indonesia's Search and Rescue Services reported that the wreckage of the aircraft had been located on the Java Sea floor, 97 to 100 nm southwest of Pangkalan Bun. On the 31st of December, Basarnas claimed that a sonar image obtained the 30th of December by an Indonesian naval ship appeared to show an aircraft upside down on the seabed in about 24 to 30 meters, 80 to 100 feet, of water, approximately 3.2–3.5 kilometers from the debris found on the 30th of December. The head of the Search and Rescue Agency also denied the existence of any sonar images of the wreckage, as well as the reported recovery of a body wearing a life vest. He stressed that only official information from his search and rescue service can be considered to be reliable. On the 2nd of January 2015, Basarnas reported evidence of a fuel slick on the water surface in the search area, but detection of the fuselage remained unconfirmed. confirmed. At a press conference given on the morning of the 3rd of January by Basarnas, the discovery of two large submerged objects was reported, 9.4 meters times 4.8 meters times 0.4 meters, and a thin object 7.2 meters times 0.5 meters. Also, the previously reported fuel slick was confirmed. A later media report mentioned four large sections of wreckage, the largest being 18 meters times 5.4 meters times 2.2 meters located at. Later in the day, Basarnas announced the discovery of the two larger adjacent objects in the afternoon of the 3rd of January was confirmed, but apparently not adjacent to the first two somewhat separated items found the previous day. The two additional items were observed to be 18 meters times 5.4 meters times 2.2 meters and 12.4 meters times 0.6 meters times 0.5 meters. No more bodies were found, leaving the total at 30. On the 7th of January, divers found parts of the aircraft including a portion of the tail. Other portions of the tail are expected to lie nearby. On the 10th of January, divers used an inflatable device to bring the aircraft's tail to the surface of the sea. They continued to search the seafloor within of where faint pings were heard. On the 11th of January, a sonar scan detected an object measuring 10 meters times 4 meters times 2.5 meters on the seafloor, and divers began work to verify the discovery and confirm that it was the fuselage of the missing aircraft. The flight data recorder was recovered by Indonesian divers on the 12th of January at, within 4 kilometers of part of the fuselage and tail. Later in the day, the cockpit voice recorder was located and was recovered the following day. On the 14th of January, searchers located a large portion of the fuselage with one wing attached. On the 25th of January, ropes around the fuselage snapped during an initial failed effort to raise the wreckage. 4 bodies were recovered, taking the total recovered to 69. More bodies were thought to be inside. Rear Admiral Widodo, who is in charge of recovery operations, said that the fuselage might be too fragile to be lifted. On the 27th of February, salvage workers recovered a large piece of fuselage, including the wings, of the A320. Lifting balloons were used to lift the fuselage, but the first attempt failed as the balloons deflated. By March 2015, all large pieces of fuselage from the jet had been lifted from the seafloor and moved for investigation purposes. Aircraft. The aircraft was an Airbus A320-216, with serial number 3648, registered as PKAXC. It first flew on the 25th of September 2008, and was delivered to Airasia on the 15th of October 2008. The aircraft had accumulated approximately 23,000 flight hours over 13,600 flights. It had undergone its most recent scheduled maintenance on the 16th of November 2014. The aircraft was powered by two CFM International CFM56-5B6 engines and was configured to carry 180 passengers and crew. Airasia released details of the 155 passengers, which included 137 adults, 17 children, and 1 infant. The crew consisted of 2 pilots and 4 flight attendants. A company engineer was also on board and was not counted as one of the passengers. The pilots on board the flight were Captain Urianto, age 53, an Indonesian national, had a total of 20,537 flying hours, of which 6,100 were with Airasia Indonesia on the Airbus A320. The captain began his career with the Indonesian Air Force, graduating from pilot school in 1983 and flying jet fighter aircraft. He took early retirement from the Air Force in the mid-1990s to join Adamair, and later worked for Merpati Nusantara Airlines and Sriwijaya Air before joining Indonesia Airasia. First Officer Ari Acute Mi Emmanuel Plessel, age 46, a French national, had a total of 2,275 flying hours with Airasia Indonesia. He was originally from La Marigot, Martinique, and had studied and worked in Paris. He was living in Indonesia. 41 people who were on board the Airasia flight were members of a single church congregation in Surabaya. Most were families with young children traveling to Singapore for a New Year's holiday. The bodies began to be returned to their families on the 1st of January 2015. At that time, the East Java Department of Visual Identification Commissioner stated that the victims were identified by the means of post-mortem results, thumbprints and their personal belongings. Investigation. The events leading to the crash were investigated by Indonesia's National Transportation Safety Committee, KNKT or Ntsc. Assistance was provided by Australia, France, Singapore, and Malaysia. Data from the flight data recorder were downloaded. 124 minutes of cockpit dialogue was successfully extracted from the cockpit voice recorder. The sound of many alarms from the flight system can be heard in the final minutes, almost drowning out the voices of the pilots. The investigators ruled out a terrorist attack as the cause and then examined the possibility of human error or aircraft malfunction. The aircraft altitude recorded by ATC radar increased from 32,000 feet to 37,000 feet between 061700 and 061754 WIB, at an initial rate of up to. At 061754, the aircraft descended from 37,000 feet to 36,000 feet in 6 seconds, and to 29,000 feet in 31 seconds. The Indonesian Agency for Meteorology, Climatology and Geophysics had reported that bad weather was believed to be the major factor to triggering the incident, specifically a weather phenomenon called atmospheric icing, which can cause engine damage due to a cooling process. Acting Director of Air Transportation, Joko Merjatmadjo, clearly stated that the investigation of the flight route and the investigation of the crash itself are separate. Merjatmadjo said that Airasia is clearly wrong because they didn't fly at a time and schedule that was already determined. Both Singapore's Civil Aviation Authority and the Changi Airport Group stated that AirAsia was allowed daily flights between Surabaya and Singapore. Tatang Kurniadi, head of Indonesia's National Transportation Safety Committee, stated that sabotage was ruled out as a cause of the incident by the black boxes, and a preliminary report was supposedly submitted to the International Civil Aviation Organization by early February. Final Ntsc report. After studying the wreckage of the Airbus A320-216 as well as the 2 black boxes and the cockpit recorder, Indonesia's National Transportation Safety Committee issued the report with their conclusions from the investigation on the 1st of December 2015. The report stated that the sequence of events that led to the crash started with a malfunction in 2 of the plane's rudder travel limiter units. A tiny soldered electrical connection in the rudder travel limiter unit was found to be cracked, causing it to send 4 warning signals to the pilots. The crew's attempt to fix the problem by resetting the flight management system also disengaged the autopilot, which contributed to the subsequent loss of control. Specifics in the report indicate that French First Officer RE Acute MI Emmanuel Plessel was at the controls just before the stall warning sounded in the cockpit, indicating that the jet had lost lift. The final step of the attempted fix consisted of one of the pilots pulling out and reinserting the circuit breaker of the flight augmentation computer, FAC, which disengaged the autopilot and the system did not start up again after the circuit breaker was reinstalled. This procedure is prohibited during flight because disabling the computer causes not only the autopilot but also the automatic stall protection to stop functioning. The FAC is the part of the fly-by-wire system in A320 aircraft responsible for controlling flight surfaces including the rudder. Without the FAC's computerized flight augmentation, pilots would have to rely on manual flying skills that are often stretched during a sudden airborne emergency. When the crew was required to fly the Airbus A320 manually, there was an unexplained 9-second delay between the start of the roll and a pilot attempting to take control. The report did not specifically conclude that pilot error caused the crash while detailing the chain of events leading to the loss of Flight 8501. However, one of the investigators, the Ntsc's Nurkahio Udomo, referred to an apparent miscommunication between the pilots, based on the recordings on the cockpit voice recorder, and said that the malfunction should not have led to a total loss of control had they followed the recommended procedure. The example of miscommunication between the pilots is when the plane is in critical stalling condition, the co-pilot misunderstood the captain's command pull down, instead of pulling the airplane's nose down, pushing up the stick, to regain speed and escape stall, he pulled down the stick. Because the captain is also pushing up the stick and because Airbus has dual input system, the plane doesn't change its condition and keeps stalling until the end of black box recording. Specifically, the report stated, subsequent flight crew action resulted in inability to control the aircraft, causing the aircraft to depart from the normal flight envelope and enter a prolonged stall condition that was beyond the capability of the flight crew to recover. CNN's aviation correspondent Richard Quest summarized the chain of events as follows: it's a series of technical failures, but it's the pilot response that leads to the plane crashing. On the 3rd of December 2015, Indonesia's Air Transportation Director General Suprasetyo said that the National Safety Transportation Board, KNKT, had provided recommendations as to tightened controls on aircraft maintenance and flight crew competence. He added that the government had implemented a series of corrective actions as a preventive measure so that the same accident will not happen again in the future. Suprasetyo also confirmed that the suspension of Indonesia Airasia's Surabaya-Singapore route would not be lifted until the carrier had completed the steps recommended by the KNKT. Aftermath: Airasia. Following the disappearance, all Airasia subsidiaries changed their website and social media branding to grayscale images. In mourning for the presumed deaths of the passengers, Changi Airport's Facebook page was similarly changed as well. An emergency call center has also been established by the airline, for family of those who were on board the aircraft, and an emergency information center was set up at Wanda International Airport, providing hourly updates and lodging for relatives. Smaller posts were also opened at Soekarno-Hatta International Airport and Sultan Hasanuddin International Airport. On the 31st of December 2014, Indonesia Airasia retired the flight number QZ8501, changing it to QZ678. The return flight number was also changed, from QZ8502 to QZ679. Subsequent to the 1st of December 2015 Ntsc report as to the causes of the crash, the airline said it had already implemented improved pilot training. The founder of Indonesia Airasia, Tony Fernandes, posted the following tweets on Twitter: "These are scars that are left on me forever, but I remain committed to make Airasia the very best, and we owe it to the families and my crew. My heart and deep sorrow goes out to all the families involved in QZ8501. In another tweet, Fernandes wrote, "There is much to be learned here for Airasia, the manufacturer and the aviation industry. We will not leave any stone unturned to make sure the industry learns from this tragic incident." Airbus. Immediately after the Ntsc report on the crash was released on the 1st of December 2015, the manufacturer of the A320 aircraft was not ready to provide a comment, stating in an email that, "Airbus has just received the final accident report. We are now carefully studying its content." Indonesia Airasia did not have any official permission to fly the Surabaya-Singapore route on Sunday, the day of the crash, but was licensed on 4 other days of the week, and, according to an Indonesian Ministry of Transport statement, the Indonesian authorities are suspending the company's flights on this route with immediate effect pending an investigation. In response, on the same day, the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore (CAAS) and the Changi Airport Group (CAG) made a clarification that Airasia QZ8501 has been given approval at Singapore's end to operate a daily flight for the northern winter season from October 26, 2014 to March 28, 2015. On the 6th of January 2015, Indonesian Ministry of Transport representative Joko Merjatmojo stated that officials at the airport operator in Surabaya and the air traffic control agency who had allowed the flight to take off had been moved to other duties, and an immediate air transport directive had been issued making it mandatory for pilots to go through a face-to-face briefing by an airline flight operations officer on weather conditions and other operational issues prior to every flight. The loss of Flight 8501 also brought attention to the lack of weather radar at Indonesian air traffic control centers. According to the Toronto Star, Indonesia's aviation industry has been plagued with problems. Pilot shortages, shoddy maintenance and poor oversight have all been blamed following a string of deadly accidents in recent years. The West Coast Waringin administration in Pangkalan Bun, Central Kalimantan planned to build a memorial for the AirAsia flight which also doubles as a monument for aviation safety. Central Kalimantan Deputy Governor Ahmad Duran also stated that the monument is also going to be the symbol of gratitude and appreciation for the efforts of the National Search and Rescue Agency. The cornerstone ceremony took place on Wednesday, and was attended by local and state officials and representatives from Australia and Singapore. West Coast Waringin Regent Ujang Iskandar stated that, "With this monument, we hope that the families and the government will lay flowers every December 28th, and continue the dialogue on aviation safety in Indonesia." On March 22, there was a gathering of people near the site of the crash and the crowd laid flowers around family members of crew members and passengers. AirAsia has reportedly offered $32,000 or Rp 300 million to each of the grieving family members of the victims of the incident as initial compensation from an overall part of compensation, Wall Street Journal claimed from a letter on AirAsia stationery dated January 2. Grieving family member David Thiakusuma received, who had 7 family members on the flight, the amount for each family member he lost. On Monday, the 16th of March, Monash University awarded in the form of posthumous title, Award of Posthumous Degree, the Bachelor of Commerce to one of the late crash victims, Kevin Alexander Sujipta. Professor Colm Carney, Dean of the Faculty of Business and Economics, presented it to a member of his family. A memorial service was held alongside the presentation of the award, and was attended by the Consul General of Indonesia for Victoria and Tasmania Dwi Savitri Wahab, 40 of the deceased's friends and representatives from the Indonesian Student Association in Australia, PPIA, Monash University branch. Legal proceedings. France opened a criminal investigation to investigate possible manslaughter charges. The family of the first officer, a French national, have filed a lawsuit against Airasia in connection to the lack of permission to fly on that day, claiming the airline was endangering the life of others. Surabaya Mayor Tri Risma Harini says her administration is ready to sue Airasia should it ignore the rights of the families of passengers on flight QZ8501, following the suspension of the airline's flight permit from the East Java city to Singapore. Risma said her administration had also consulted with legal experts from Airlangga University on the fears of most families regarding the difficulties in disbursing insurance funds, after the Transportation Ministry regarded the Surabaya-Singapore flight on December 28 as illegitimate. She said her administration continued to collect data on the victims, including their valuable belongings. The data would later be used for insurance purposes and matters related to the beneficiary rights of the affected families. A US-based aviation lawyer was planning to sue Airasia, claiming that they are representing 10 families over an aircraft malfunction following the crash of flight QZ8501. Principal of Chicago-based Wisner law firm Floyd Wisner said that although preliminary investigations found that weather was a factor, the Airbus A320-200 suffered a malfunction of the fly-by-wire system. According to the statement, the lawsuit, which was filed in the U.S. state of Illinois, states that, at the time the accident aircraft left the control of defendant Airbus, it was defectively and unreasonably dangerous, and names Honeywell International, Motorola Inc. and other suppliers along with Airbus as defendants. The case is Aris Siswanto et al. v. Airbus, SAS et al., 115 CV 05486, U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois, Chicago. As of the 30th of June 2015, the suit had still named only Airbus and its suppliers, but Airasia was to be added as a defendant, according to Floyd Wisner of the Wisner law firm. Air transport industry. Following the recovery of the flight recorders, on 12 and the 13th of January, an anonymous International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, representative said, the time has come that deployable recorders are going to get a serious look. Unlike military recorders, which jettison away from an aircraft and float on the water, signaling their location to search and rescue bodies, recorders on commercial aircraft sink. A second ICAO official said that public attention had galvanized momentum in favor of ejectable recorders on commercial aircraft. Indonesian tourism. Indonesia's tourism was badly affected by the incident, according to the head of Indonesia's Central Statistics Agency, CSA, Suryamin, in a press conference at his office on the 1st of April. The accident has caused the number of foreign visitors to decline. Figures from the Indonesian Ministry of Tourism has shown that the number of incoming foreign tourists at Surabaya's Wanda Airport has declined by 5.33%, Jakarta's Soekarno-Hatta International Airport by 15.01%, and Bandung's Hussein Sastranegara Airport by 10.66%.